Hi, and welcome to Dare to Be Different. This is Steve McAllister, and today my guest is Adam Tebrugge. And Adam has been a public defender for 23 years, and he is currently the chairman of the Suncoast Partnership to End Homelessness, working here in Sarasota County, and he is also running as a Democrat for the House of Representatives in Florida. Adam, thank you so much for coming.
It's my pleasure, Steve. Thank you for having me on the program.
You're very welcome. Now, first, what's different for me is actually having a Democrat running for office in Sarasota. That's kind of rare.
We're not as rare as you might think, Steve. We've had some Democratic success in previous years. Previous people who have held the position that I'm running for include Shirley Brown, who is a member of the Florida House of Representatives, and Keith Fitzgerald, who's presently running for United States Congress. There are big pockets of Democratic support, and there's a lot of independents and Republicans out there who are willing to support the right candidate.
Now, what was it why did you decide to run for office this time?
Steve, I've been real active in the community for the past 27 years, and I really felt like things were out of balance up in Tallahassee. I didn't feel like the people of Sarasota and Bradenton are getting good representation. And one thing in particular that motivated me is, as you mentioned, I had been serving as the chair of the Suncoast Partnership to End Homelessness, and we took very little money from the state, about $25,000 a year, to just help keep our office doors open. And we used that money to bring in close to $1 million a year that we were able to distribute to service providers. In any event, during this last legislative session, the legislature zeroed out homelessness funding, and when you're zeroed out, it's going to be really difficult to get back into the budget in years to come. That kind of maneuver, I think, is short-sighted, particularly in light of the economic crisis that has hit our community so hard. We've got real work to do on the issue of homelessness, and the state definitely has a role to play there. But that's just one example of why I'm running for the legislature. Right.
One of the things, because I know that they also cut a lot of funding for mental health issues. And they've closed hospitals down, so we don't have the state hospitals that we used to. Is the money just being cut to lower the budget, or is it being diverted to other places?
Well, both. So revenues have gone down in the state of Florida pretty much each of the last 5 years. And so for those first few years, there were cuts. And some might say, well, they were cutting fat from government. Well, a few years ago, then they really started cutting into the bone of essential core governmental services. But what's so discouraging about these past 2 years is they've refused to consider any possibility of raising additional revenue, and instead they've given massive tax cuts to their corporate friends that have reduced the revenues available for core governmental services. And that's what I mean about things really being out of balance up in Tallahassee.
Well, that's just kind of a mirror of what's going on nationally, isn't it? And the same thing happening on the national level as well. Getting these huge tax cuts to rich and wealthy corporations where, and then trying to pay for all the things you're trying to pay for out of where? Just taxing more the poor people more, it seems.
Certainly there are issues on the national front, but Florida's got particular problems. We have no state income tax in Florida, and that's pursuant to our state constitution. So most of our revenue is coming from sales tax or from property taxes. And both of those are not particularly progressive measures of taxation. And Governor Reuben Askew in the early 1970s ran for office on the proposition that corporations ought to be able to pay their fair share if they wanted to set up business in the state of Florida. And they have for the past 30 years. And now Governor Scott and his friends in the Republican-led legislature are trying to eliminate corporate taxes completely for the state of Florida. And again, I think that that's a short-sighted maneuver.
What's the rationale behind that? I don't even understand that. That seems to be, when you have business is supposed to make money. That's an economic vibrancy. Why would you not tax that? That doesn't make any sense.
Well, the mantra that you hear these people claim over and over again is jobs. It's all about jobs. And that's a message that I know resonates with people right now because we have been in a recession and there has been terrible unemployment. But we haven't seen the job creation come from all of these tax breaks. And quite honestly, to me, what it looks like is some wealthy corporations put these people in office with the expectation that they would get their just reward at the end of the day.
Right. Well, it's weird that we've got this understanding that money equals jobs, because obviously it doesn't, because they're making extra money because they don't have to pay any taxes. But wasn't a big part of the point of the whole Industrial Revolution so that we wouldn't have to have as many jobs, so we could take some more downtime and have machines working for us more often? But as it's come out, I mean, Americans work more hours per week than any other industrialization in the world.
Well, Steve, you know, we certainly need jobs in our community. And getting back to the homelessness effort that I've been involved with, I was encountering so many recently homeless people during last year when we were having community meetings. And the one message that I heard over and over again from these folks is that they needed jobs. They needed to go to work. Even beyond their own pocketbook issues, they needed to take their place in society and to garner that kind of respect that comes from working. So, you know, it's a complicated issue, the issue of jobs and the economy. But I really don't believe that Florida's tax system has inhibited job creation. Already, we're one of the lowest tax states in the United States. And I'm a small business owner myself, and I have not found the tax system to be overly onerous.
Right. Have we ever thought about visiting Alaska? Because Alaska seems to have it down. They don't even have a sales tax, and they pay people to live there.
Well, you know, Alaska has abundant natural resources, and that's where their funds come from.
Yeah, we keep kind of screwing our natural resources up down here. We got to stop doing that. Which begs me the question, what do you see as the role of government?
Well, I've got on my website an article that I called The Core Functions of Government, and I discussed 4 areas in there. First, under the Florida Constitution, every citizen in our state has a right to a decent public education. So that goes above and beyond what is in a lot of states throughout the country. And unfortunately, our legislature has not lived up to this requirement in the Florida Constitution. Secondly, government must maintain the legal system and all that entails. It entails the criminal justice system and law enforcement and the courts, but it also entails the right to contract and the right to vote and all of the other rights that we sort of take for granted on a day-to-day basis. And another short-sighted move of this last legislative session was to slash the clerk of the court's offices throughout the state of Florida. And the clerk of the courts are the backbone of the court system, and they also bring in a lot of revenue to the state of Florida. So that was a decision that I thought was terrible.
So that obviously didn't go through.
It did go through, and we're right on the verge of laying off up to 1,000 people around the state of Florida, hardworking people who work for the clerk of the court's office, many of whom I know personally.
So now where do people send their checks now? Because whenever I had to register a car or pay a ticket or anything, it was always the clerk of court. Who gets a check now?
Well, you're still going to have to go to the clerk of the court, but they're going to have to cut back on their hours. They're going to have to cut back on their public service. They're going to have to cut back on the way that they're able to file and maintain records. It's going to really, like I said, they had already cut out the fat years ago. Now we're cutting the legs out from underneath the clerk of the court's office.
So now you've basically just got fewer people working harder.
You have that, but you also have a greater demand due to the foreclosure crisis and some other legal issues that have been going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, Steve, another core function of government is preservation of our precious natural resources. A lot of people came to Florida to enjoy our beautiful natural environment, to enjoy our waterways and bays and rivers. But beyond that, Florida has natural resources as well. For instance, phosphate. Now, the phosphate companies have come into our state and taken a great deal away from us without, in my opinion, properly compensating us for that which they have taken away. So we need to really be careful with corporations like the phosphate companies. Mosaic is running beautiful ads on television now that shows their reclamation of lands, but there's a deeper, darker story behind Mosaic. The other thing that we have to really be concerned about here in the state of Florida is our groundwater. Without water, Florida will shrivel up and die, and we have been in drought-like conditions for several years now, and we've taken so much groundwater out of the aquifer that it's led to a sinkhole crisis in portions of Central Florida. So we have to be very careful with our precious natural resources. And one program that I've been very supportive of is the Florida Forever program, where they've been able to buy environmentally sensitive lands and keep them as important watershed areas. So I'm a big believer in environmental protection, and when I'm in the legislature, that's going to be one of my priorities.
Oh, good. That's my favorite one.
And then the final priority of government, and it's sometimes overlooked, is the provision of basic social services. You know, ours is not a society where we walk by somebody who's laying on the street sick or dying or in pain. We are going to bring that person to the hospital and provide them with some basic health care. Well then, how are we going to pay for that? How are we going to get health care to those who need it? What are we going to do about our elderly citizens who make up such a large and important part of our population? What are we going to do about newborns and pre-K students who are in need of services? These are sort of the big questions that government is wrestling with right now. And again, there's been a lot of real short-sighted activity on the part of the legislature. If you cut now, you're gonna have to pay later. And you're usually gonna have to pay in a much more expensive manner than you could if you offered some basic preventive health care.
Yeah, I think prevention is always the way to go. Then you don't have to pay for fixing whatever it is broke because you weren't, being careful in the first place. But one of the things that I'm proud of here in Sarasota is that we have the Sarasota Memorial County Healthcare System. We changed it now, but we still call it SMH. And it's one of those places that they don't deny anybody care. I've heard of quite a few people who go there and they don't have insurance, they don't have money, but they get their operation, they get their surgery. Now, we still always get the bill at the end, but at least I'm thankful that we have people who at least aren't denying people service, because in some parts of the world that's what happens. But I guess, how do you see that we handle that so that we are able to take that burden off of them at the end, when they're not getting these huge bills? I know that there's talk about universal health care and all that kind of stuff. Do you see that as the government's role? Is that something the government should take care of?
Well, those are big and important questions, Steve. One thing I like about campaigning is that it's a learning experience for me as well. So as part of my campaign, I'm taking the time to meet with healthcare providers throughout Manatee and Sarasota County, and I'm trying to understand more the operations of Sarasota Memorial Hospital and Manatee Memorial Hospital. I'm trying to learn more about our public health clinics and facilities, the Sarasota County Health Department, Manatee County Health Department. I've got appointments upcoming to go there and find out what their challenges are. That's taking an ever-increasing portion of our state's budget, is the provision of some of these basic health care services. But there do seem to be some small basic reforms that can make a big difference in terms of reducing cost. For instance, if we can get the healthcare providers to work together to buy prescription medications in bulk, that could lead to some significant savings. And I'm studying other ideas like that as well. But we have to address the cost side of healthcare at the same time that we're addressing the way that it's provided.
Mm-hmm. one of the things that we're working on, I'm working with Don Hall from Transition Sarasota. I'm sure you probably know or know of.
I am familiar and a member of Transition Sarasota, and I admire the work that they're doing.
Well, one of the things that we're doing is putting together a time bank here in Sarasota where we can offer alternative currencies. Because one of the things that gets me is you have these alternative healthcare systems, which are very preventative. You know, getting acupuncture, getting doing yoga, aromatherapy, those kind of things can be very effective in preventing a lot of the issues that we deal with on a regular basis, because in our consumerist culture, we have a very unhealthy lifestyle. Unfortunately, a lot of these healthcare alternates aren't funded through any kind of insurance plan or something, so they're all out of pocket. So one of the things that we're trying to do is to find an alternative way to pay for that, and one of the time bank is the way that we really see it being able to happen, and offering that kind of opportunity for people to do something a little different outside of the box. Are you familiar with other communities that have done different kinds of currencies or any of those possibilities?
I've heard a little bit about that, but that's an issue I'd like to get more information out. So I'll be paying attention to your efforts in that area.
We'll be talking about it next week, so don't worry about that.
All right.
But I know that you also, in your getting funding for your campaign, you're kind of taking a cue from what Obama did with his campaign and taking very limited campaign contributions. And only limit it to like $100 a person is what they can contribute?
I think a lot of people are concerned by the influence of money in politics. And the ultimate question is, what are you getting for your money? When a candidate accepts all of their contributions from the insurance companies or for the phosphate companies, what do these companies expect in return? I think that the only way to send a message to the people that I will be their representative is to fund my campaign in the manner that you've suggested. So I'm limiting campaign contributions to $100 per individual donor. And my inspiration for that is former United States Senator, former governor of the state of Florida, Lawton Chiles. And he ran and won several statewide campaigns by limiting his campaign contributions to $100 voluntarily. But Steve, the only way this will work is that if people endorse that method and if they will take my message and spread it around to other people. I'm not going to have the money to do all of that direct mail or television advertising that's traditionally associated with political campaigns. But that doesn't mean that I'm not a serious candidate. If you go to my website, www.atfh71.info, you can read my policy statements that I'm trying to publish every week or so about how I'm going to approach representing the citizens of Sarasota and Manatee County. But I need people to help spread the word. This is going to be a person-to-person campaign, and it can and will be successful.
I hope so. So ATFH71, right?
ATFH,
so
Adam Tebrugge, Florida House 71 is the acronym .info.
Got it. Now, I looked at your other website, and one of the things you talked about was getting smart on crime. And you were a public defender for 27 years, I guess you were in some capacity of defense. So you've obviously seen a lot and worked mostly trials of some big name. And what does that mean to you, get smart with crime?
Our criminal justice system is in drastic need of an overhaul. We have to ask some of the big questions about what are we trying to accomplish in our criminal justice system? Who do we want to lock up and for how long? The Department of Corrections is the single biggest discretionary item in the state of Florida's budget. And every week I see young men and women sent off to prison who are non-violent offenders. People don't understand that in our local county jails, they're populated with people who are in there on driver's license offenses. And we see so many people being sent off to prison for simple addiction to controlled substances. There is a better way. And what's really interesting right now is that traditionally conservative states like Texas and Georgia have been leading the way in smart criminal justice reform. And basically what that means is you put more of an emphasis on rehabilitation so that people don't go back to prison, and you make better decisions about who needs to go to prison and for how long. Right now, Florida's system is so rigorous with the mandates coming down from Tallahassee that it's really taken away all discretion from our local judiciary to make the best decision about what punishment this offender needs in this case. So it's going to be a long process to overhaul that. Unfortunately, Governor Scott vetoed the first attempt at smart criminal justice reform that was going to allow certain low-level drug offenders to move into rehabilitative facilities near the end of their sentences. But you know what? We have to keep trying because things are such a problem right now.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to like drug offenders very much. Drug users at all, it seems.
I had held out some hope. Sometimes when you get an outsider type who's elected as governor, sometimes they'll take a fresh look at the criminal justice system, but unfortunately that's not been the case with Governor Scott.
I know that California has looked a couple times, and they're probably going to keep going back again, about legalizing marijuana, for one. I think we have 17 states now that have legalized it for medical uses. Do you see Florida going that route eventually? Is that a possibility coming down the pike?
I think that's a debate that needs to be heard in the state of Florida for a variety of reasons. Alcohol has a lot of consequences. It has health consequences. It has consequences on our roadway. It has consequences in our criminal justice system. Marijuana, it seems like that the primary consequences are in the criminal justice system. We don't see the same impact upon people's lives from use of marijuana that we see from long-term use of alcohol, for instance. And you have to wonder about law enforcement resources being brought to bear upon people who are smoking marijuana, and you have to worry about people who get a lifelong criminal record for that activity, and that prevents them from getting employment. So that's a debate that needs to be had. Unfortunately, Florida's not as far along as other states. People have been afraid to even address the issue so far, but I won't be, because I've seen the problems that marijuana prohibition has led to in the criminal justice system.
Mm-hmm. I mean, didn't we learn the same thing from alcohol prohibition? I mean, we saw how long that lasted and what good it did.
I think that there are similarities, and I think that there are differences as well. But honestly, again, as I alluded to earlier, the consequences of alcohol abuse are dramatic, and I've seen quite a few people who have lost a great deal due to alcohol abuse. We have to be vigilant in that area. We have to be able to provide substance abuse treatment for those who are ready to address their problems. I've always felt like when we talk about quote-unquote legalization, it depends on what does that look like. And I'm not so sure that anyone wants drugs being bought and sold like they do in the liquor stores right now. But on the other hand, if there was some access provided and there was also access to treatment that was provided when somebody was ready for treatment, I think that's a more workable model. Mm-hmm. Right now, if somebody comes to me and says, Adam, I've got a bad drug problem and I need treatment, but I don't have any insurance, there's really no place that I can send them to get help. And they're likely to end up as part of the criminal justice system if their addiction goes untreated. Mm-hmm.
Do you think Florida has what it takes to make that shift and to open up to compassion for our citizens instead of the punishment that's happening now?
I think that it's possible. I think that there are other courageous leaders out there. I think there's a new generation who's coming up and coming into politics over the next decade or so. So these kind of debates are ever-changing, and yes, I think that's possible, but I don't think it's going to happen this year.
Well, one of the ways we've seen compassion here in Sarasota County, and Sarasota, as a lot of people know, was called the meanest city to homeless people. a few years ago. A couple times it's been called that, and as a native, I was never cool with that. But you're the chairman of the Suncoast Partnership to End Homelessness, and you've gotten over 600 community members got involved with this program and said, you know what, enough is enough. We want to take care of this problem in a humane, civilized manner, and you created this Step Up program, which is a 10-year plan. Tell me about how that happened.
So my agency, the Suncoast Partnership to End Homelessness, covers both Manatee and Sarasota counties. In 2005, Manatee County undertook this planning process for a 10-year plan to end homelessness. And as a direct result, they were able to open the one-stop center near McKaig baseball field in downtown Bradenton. And that's just a terrific facility where they're able to feed people, get their laundry done, get showers, get them medical and dental care, and put them in touch with other services. My office is in downtown Bradenton, and I'll tell you, there's a lot less tension about the issue of homelessness in Bradenton because of some of the programs that came out of the 10-year plan. So we knew that the time was right for Sarasota County to undertake such a planning process as well. In 2011, I led a series of community meetings throughout Sarasota County where people could come forward and work together on different aspects of the homelessness problem. And as a result of that, we've come up with Step Up Sarasota, the plan to end homelessness. And right now, I'm in the process of trying to get this plan implemented. I'm meeting with county commissioners, I'm meeting with municipal government, I'm meeting with law enforcement, I'm meeting with church groups, and we're all trying to get community buy-in to this idea that we can deal with the issue of homelessness. It is not an intractable or unsolvable problem.
What are I know you broke it down into 5 different categories, and you had different people working in these different groups and focusing on those. What were the different things that they looked at?
So the first group I would mention is prevention, because we found that it's far more humane and far cheaper to keep people in their homes than to try to rehouse them after they have lost their homes. And sometimes people just need a very little bit of money to bridge the gap from one month to the next, or to pay that utility bill to keep the water on. So we're looking at different programs that have been successful with prevention around the country. One of the areas where we've gotten a lot of initiatives underway is in the area of public safety. And so, for instance, we're trying to work with inmates at the Sarasota County Jail right now while they're incarcerated to keep them from being discharged into homelessness. And we've got a program with the Salvation Army where there's a bus outside the jail now to take people down to the Salvation Army for breakfast, maybe keep them there for a few days and put them in touch with services. And that's just one example of one of the initiatives that's taking place. We had a public health component of the plan, and we're trying to figure out ways to take health care to the people, perhaps through use of mobile health care vans or better provision throughout the county. One of our dreams is to open a one-stop center in southern Sarasota County, perhaps in the South Venice or Northport area, where there's a real lack of services right now. But if we can get a facility similar to that which they have in Bradenton, I'm confident that our medical and dental community will step up to help provide services to the people down there. Right. Of course, the most important component of a homelessness plan is housing. And what we've discovered is that housing goes along a continuum. There are certain people who need emergency shelter for tonight. There are other people who need transitional shelter, where they need a little bit of extra care, or they're coming out of rehab or coming out of jails, or they're trying to take those first steps forward. And then there are people who are ready for more long-term solutions. So we're looking at things like single-room occupancy apartments that have been successful in some areas. And I'm also looking at Pinellas County, where they've been able to get hundreds of people off the streets of St. Petersburg and into safe and secure shelter for the evening. And I'm trying to pitch those plans to people in Sarasota. And then the final component of the plan was the economic work group, because as I mentioned before, a lot of citizens want to work. And so we have to figure out ways to engage our business community. We have to figure out ways to encourage entrepreneurship, to be able to make small business loans, to get people who are willing to work back to work. And when we tie all of these plans together, we come up with the overall Step Up Sarasota End Homelessness Now.
And so you're taking this, I was there when you took it to the county commission, you're taking it to the city commission, as you said, you're taking it all over. What's really necessary to really instate the thing and make it happen the way that Bradenton does? Bradenton, I think, is what, 5 years into theirs now?
They are, and we had a great summit in January of 2012 to review the progress that had been made over the first 5 years and to identify the failures and what needed to be done over the next 5 years. So there's a lot of energy in Bradenton. You know, what I'd really like to see for Sarasota and Bradenton is I'd like to see a person who wakes up every day thinking about homelessness, thinking about our plan, thinking about programs that can be initiated, who's on the phone calling business leaders, who's helping to raise money, who's helping to do site selection for a one-stop center. Right now we don't have that. I led this plan about as far as I could with the community meetings and as serving as chair of the board. I've had to step down as the chairman now to attend to the campaign and to attend to my law practice, though I'm still the chair of Step Up. The partnership Suncoast Partnership is a small agency. Our executive director, Richard Martin, is a tireless and passionate advocate for the homeless. But he has to work with all of the service providers throughout the two-county area. We call that the continuum of care. And he has to make sure that they're doing data collection properly so we can turn that data into the funding that we bring back into the community. So this plan is a little bit too much for the partnership to take on by itself. I'm hoping to fund a position in the near future to build community support behind this plan. I don't want this to be something that sits on the shelf. I want it to be implemented.
So we're looking to create one job, one super guy.
You know, that would be a great start. San Antonio, Texas, there's a fellow named Dr. Robert Marbuck, and he's who came to the big seminar that we had in January in Bradenton. And he showed what one person can do. And from the tiny mustard seed, the huge mustard plant grows. He has built a tremendous homelessness campus in San Antonio, Texas, where they are able to house people, educate people, give them health care, give them in touch with services, put them in touch with employers. It's really a model for the rest of the nation. And when Dr. Marbutt came to Bradenton, he said, I don't want to hear you talking about opening a shelter next year or the following year. I want you to open a shelter within the next 90 days. And actually, the Salvation Army in Bradenton did agree to then start housing people where they had not been able to do that before. And so through the winter months, there were a lot of people who were no longer sleeping in the streets or in the woods of Manatee County. But that's just an example of what somebody with the right energy can accomplish.
Well, you have a lot of cities that are doing, like the tent cities as well, and getting someplace. Because unfortunately, Sarasota doesn't have any homeless shelter. We have our Salvation Army opens up its doors and allows people to sleep on mats on the floor in the cafeteria, but it's not really a homeless shelter. Where we live in quite a paradise here, so I mean our climate isn't that bad where we need it very often. But and is there talk about that kind of tent city, that kind of temporary place where people can just go be safe?
I have been talking about that through the community. You know, in St. Petersburg, people were living underneath the overpass of the interstate. And law enforcement finally decided that enough was enough, and they forcibly moved everybody out from underneath the overpass. And it really gave the city of St. Petersburg a black eye, the way that the tactics were used. It was not long after that Catholic Charities donated a 10-acre plot of land in an industrial section of St. Petersburg. And the first thing they did was put up a fence to keep the area secure. And then they started to allow people to camp there, but also to build an infrastructure. And by infrastructure, I mean bathrooms, I mean a kitchen, and I mean a dining hall. Because one of the problems with the homeless camps that are throughout our community is that there is no sanitary facilities associated with the camp. And that can lead to a variety of undesirable consequences. If you give people a place to go, you can provide for sanitation. You can have a central location where the service providers go to meet with people and help transition them out of the tent city. The tent city in Pinellas County is really a wonder of the world. We had several of our groups go up and tour the tent city during the 10-year planning process. We have to find a suitable location somewhere in Sarasota County, and that's easier said than done. You do want to keep it near, for instance, a bus line so that people have the ability to get transportation. You have to be conscious about impact upon surrounding neighborhoods. So there's a lot of different considerations that go into it. And people are concerned about the humanitarian aspect as well. Oh, should we really be encouraging people to live in tents? Well, let me tell you, it's better than sleeping on the street, particularly if it is safe, secure, and sanitary.
Yeah. From what I've heard about Richard Marble, you talked about, one of the things I like about him where he talks about engaging the homeless population, not enabling them, and so he's like, don't give them money on the street, but let's actually work with them as people and deal with their issues. And so I hope that this helps do that and helps us to really take that step up as a community and get involved. And one of the processes that I think that was discussed in this was the street teams. Is that you got a part in that coming about?
Yes, this is modeled after teams that are in place in Daytona Beach already. And so homeless citizens are given a place to stay during the evening. In the morning, they go and they wear uniforms or special t-shirts, and they'll be working in our downtown core, helping to address some of the services that the city is no longer able to provide, like emptying trash, picking up trash, pulling weeds from some of the public parks. And then in the afternoon, they'll be able to engage in job training and pursue employment. And so the idea is it's not a permanent location for people to be. Again, it's a transition, but it will help people with that self-respect that I mentioned before that comes with having a job. It will help the city. We're going to try and get community sponsors for the street teams. It'll help get people off the streets, and it will help hopefully put them on a better road forward.
So I just had a great idea. Since I heard rumor that we're going to be kind of maybe having to dismantle the police department or making it part of the sheriff's department. What if we just deputize the homeless people, and then they can do that?
Well, that opens up a whole different can of worms, Steve.
That's why I'm running for office.
But there's no reason that responsible homeless citizens could not be part of the solution of keeping our downtown safe and addressing people who cause problems, being the eyes and ears of the community, almost like a neighborhood watch. I think homeless citizens might have more credibility with some of the problem causers. And a lot of the people who are causing problems in the downtown corridor are those who are suffering from mental illness or substance abuse. So part of our plan is to hopefully get some outreach in place. You have to build trusting relationships, and that can be difficult. So we hope to work on that and convince somebody, hey, come get checked out. Let's see if we can do something to make you feel better. A little bit of that is going on in Manatee County, again, through Manatee Glens right now, and there's been some real success. But this is, again, modeled on successful programs throughout the country. Yeah,
it is remarkable. I mean, I know quite a few of the homeless people downtown, and they do know what's going on in the city, and they do help one another, and they do help other people out quite a bit. It's remarkable the things you don't see because you just see them as...
That's right, and we shouldn't have an adversary relationship with our fellow human beings when we can engage them to be part of the solution. And to me, that was the most powerful part of the planning process is we did reach out to homeless citizens. We asked them to be involved, and they were. They not only showed up to the first meeting, but they kept coming back to subsequent meetings. They fully participated in the work groups. And so the citizens who have homes learned so much from the homeless citizens who were in the planning process.
Very cool. It's exciting. Okay, we're way over time. Do you have any last words before you take off?
I just appreciate the opportunity to come on this program and to discuss some of these really important issues. So keep up the good work, Steve.
Thank you very much. You do the same. Thank you for tuning in.